Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gotham City. I'm your host, Levy Rozman. This is a podcast where I talk to people who live in the chess world on the 64 squares and also beyond them. And we are going beyond them for this episode as we are speaking with Fedor Holz. He is one of the greatest poker players ever, although obviously the rankings in poker are a little bit less defined than they are in chess. It's an honor to speak with him. He has played chess in the past. We've even collaborated on chess in the past. It's a very fun conversation. And before we get into it, I just want to say that the gap between the last upload and this one was pretty extensive. That came from moving, raising the new puppy, and certain things having to be prioritized, and also my own negligence. So moving forward, we're going to try to be more consistent once again with the uploads. Thanks for your support on my main content, as well as the podcast. Let's get into today's conversation. We're live. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, sounds great. Let's go.
Fedor, I don't even know where to start this conversation, so I'm gonna start it here. I was really pleasantly surprised and shocked last year when you started kind of getting into the chess world a little bit. Obviously, it was surreal seeing you like in person, like, I mean, not in person, but digitally, and knowing that you're a chess player, because I've watched you for so many hours playing these, top level events and poker and everything. So we have a majority chess audience. So can you just tell me how chess is even part of your life, because you're so focused on poker?
Yeah, it was a part of my life much earlier than poker was. So I started playing chess. I don't remember the exact age, but I think the first time I played chess was maybe when I was 8 or 9, roughly. I would say 8. And we had a chess board, or like a chess computer, one of these like ones that you can play against in school. And I would finish like my schoolwork, and then I could play. So I always tried to finish my schoolwork really quickly. And then when the other kids were still doing that, I played chess. And that's basically how I started playing it. And then I really, really enjoyed it and joined the chess club, which is called Saarbrücken. So it's like a southwest city in Germany. And I absolutely loved it. Like I played every day. And then I played like state championships and got, I think, 2nd or 3rd. And then I played German championships and then got like 47th or something.
But that's not bad.
Or something like that. And then actually my most exciting experience was I had a really, really hot run in some blitz event where I beat, I think he was maybe 2.1K. Because he made an illegal move, and and so I think I came like 5th or whatever, or something like that.
How old were you?
9, I think, 10.
Wow. And your rating was around what at that age?
It was so hard back then because we didn't have enough games to actually get to the proper rating. I think I was beating sometimes like 1700s. But not often, and I was almost always beating like 1400. So like maybe in that direction. So,
yeah. And
so yeah, that was it. And then I started hating it. Like then they tried to kind of drill me more towards like studying, and I just stopped liking it that much. And then I actually quit. Like it was literally 2 years, super intense. Mm-hmm. And then I almost didn't play again until like 2 years ago.
That's amazing. So you quit like before you were a teenager, or when you were a teenager?
I must have been like 11 and a half or something. So
I quit around then too, even though I was, for a very brief period, I was the second best 12-year-old in the United States. But I quit. Wow. Yeah, I mean, well, back then I was 2000, so I was maybe top 5 usually. But yeah, even I quit, and I was up there. So that just goes to show you and I quit because I had to study. So I quit because studying was very bad. Well, what did you, and then so you quit chess and poker came into your life maybe like what, 14, 15 years old? That's usually the number, right? Like,
yeah, around 15 to 16, we played with friends, just had a fun home game and
Mm-hmm.
played for a couple euros. And my friends were older than me because I skipped classes, and so they always crushed me. Like I was. It's actually funny. My friend, we had this poker game that we played, and he tracked it like every single session. He tracked for every opponent, like,
Wow.
and then he launched a website where it literally just the statistics of all the games we ever played, and I think I was down like 50 or 60 euros. Like my graph was like this, and yeah, this was my first 1.5 years of playing poker.
That's usually what the story is, right? Because that's also right around the time where you're kind of becoming an adult, and then also you kind of getting into like gambling, and you can make an account online. And was that the next step for you? You were playing these games, you were kind of on a downtrend, and was it the same love you had for chess? Just like a kind of a curiosity?
Yeah, very similar. I just love games. I wouldn't even say it was that different. It's just it consumes me. Like it's just the only thing I do then because I'm so excited about it. You know, I wake up and I'm like, I could be doing this, and then that's the first thing I do. And I've had this with loads of different things: strategy games, computer games, chess, poker, sometimes sports as well, football also. I just played it every day, and it's just this excitement when I feel like there is an endless room to improve, and I can feel this process of getting better at it. And it's not so much about, you know, scoring something or winning something. It's really more about this little step, like this next step, and then this rush when you achieve that step.
Interesting. So it's not about kind of the end goal, the result. It's just sort of like taking it a step at a time, enjoying getting better, and then
it's I always try to make examples where I feel exactly the same and there's basically no financial gain. Like, for example, I just did a wood workshop, and it was so amazing. Like it was very exhausting actually, and it took like 10 hours, and we built our own chair. So no financial gain, like nothing that helps me for ever making money, I guess. But it was challenging. I really loved it. I was really immersed in the experience, and I had something I could take away and look at and be like, cool, you know, this is my chair. I chose the material, I built it, I made it, and I felt the same level of excitement for poker. You know, it's like there's a challenge, there's an environment, there's like a path of growth, and there's this tingly feeling when I get better at something, you know, when there's like, it's kind of like your synapses are, you know, like ordering in a better way, and like this just feels nice. I don't know, it's hard to explain.
It's good. I think I tend to feel that way as well. I think though I'm naturally quite I'm a person who, like, if I'm satisfied, I can very easily get lazy. So I'm like, I don't need this extra thing. But recently I did the same actually with tennis, like you just described with woodworking. This was a couple of months ago, but I was just biking home and I saw a tennis center, and I told Lucy, I said, hey, we should just play some tennis. You know, we've played it maybe a couple times in our lives, but a couple months later, yeah, every week you make some small improvements. I'm definitely down lots of money on tennis lessons. I'm never going to win anything. But it's nice. Yeah, I guess it's nice to, it's different because it's not like a permanent health gain. It's not like going to the gym. It's just go play tennis and get a little bit better at it. So maybe I'll give woodworking a shot. But do you also feel fulfillment if like you fail? I mean, like if your woodwork was a disaster and you broke everything, or you determined you have to like succeed at it to kind of see it through?
I think it depends on the level. So I think depth plays a big role, and also progress. So depth in terms of, I mean, when a game is like, you know, very simple, then there's less excitement about getting better at it. So that's one part, and the other part is how fast I'm moving. So yeah, of course, if I'm not progressing for like 20 hours in a row, I can also feel like I'm getting frustrated and it's just not that fun. So I think there's like some level of infinite depth or like very, very big depth, and then like gradual movement to some degree. And that's what I feel with chess right now as well, is that I prefer to lose the majority of the games. Like I don't care about, I really don't care about the result. Like the only thing I look at is, what can I learn from what I have done and what can I learn from what they have done. And I prefer actually to play against really strong opponents. I would prefer to just play against, 2200s like all the time rather than 1700s. I just feel like it's better for me to challenge myself against really good opponents than against similar strength opponents.
Yeah, that's very difficult to do nowadays unless you know somebody, right? Like you can't just go to chess.com as I don't know your current rating, but like you can't just log in and go, okay, I want to play a 2200, because they don't want to play you.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're like, there's no incentive. Is that what makes chess also kind of hard to improve at? Because the only way I guess to do that is to have like some friends who are that rating, or to basically play with a trainer.
I have a very different, but I have a very distinct opinion about improving in chess.
Okay.
Like I think it is actually an area where my brain is even better set up for it in poker. Like I think it is the game that I probably, from how I think, perform the best in. And when I look at how other people learn it, I feel they're trying to simplify in way too many ways. And I think every time you make a simplification, it kind of like caps you at like, okay, you can only get as good as that. And it's much harder, like depending on where you draw that simplification, it's much harder to then unlearn it at a later point when you've stored this and kind of build your strategy around that. So could be these simple rules that your teachers teach you, right? Like don't put a knight on the, I don't know how to say it in English, but don't put it on the side of the board. Stuff like this where, right, like all of this is it's probably, I don't know, 98% of the time it's probably correct that this is not the move you prefer, but sometimes it is. And I feel what I love about chess is that it is not that binary. Like there's an incredible amount of depth and much, much deeper than what humans are capable of performing at. And accepting that, I feel like I saw the exact same in poker. It's like people always get to that point where it's like, now I kind of got it. It's like, now I kind of understood it. Or like, now I got this, or I got that. And my attitude was always like, oh, I know nothing. It's just like, there's more. And I frankly learned really the best way just working with an engine and just playing my games. And then I review my game, and then I look for logical fallacies or problems I see in my game, comparing it to the best possible outcome that I can find.
I was gonna say, so you're good at, like, if you analyze the game and the machine is telling you in this moment that you made a mistake, you're kind of good at solving why and filling in the gap. And then
exactly, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's very important.
I'm bad at executing it because obviously I haven't trained enough. So like I've only played, I don't know, maybe 1,500 games in my life or something, or 2,000 or 3,000, or I don't know.
Yeah.
So my muscle memory just isn't there, or the way to reproduce it. But I think in terms of logical building, like I think that is something that is much easier in chess than in poker, because in chess you have the entire data available, and in poker it's just so much more complex to even come to these conclusions because there's so much hidden data.
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm sure you have at some point thought about, and basically anybody who knows really anything like up to a very, very like at least elementary level in chess and poker has once thought about, which is the similarity and the difference between the two in terms of learning. For example, yeah, in chess you can say I've played 3,000 games and maybe 2,990 of them went longer than 10 moves, because let's just say maybe 10 times you disconnected or whatever, you got mated in 4 moves, but you have it all. It's right there. You have all the phases of the game. You can even go to, chess.com insights, and it will tell you everything about yourself. But I've tried to do this for poker, and For me, poker is just absolutely fascinating. It's something that when one day I stop uploading to YouTube, hopefully, I will like sit down and actually really try to learn. Because in poker, you can't just say I've played 5 million hands, let's just say, right? Or I mean, I don't know if that's a ridiculous number, but because you're also folding before the hand even begins, right? Does that even count? So where do you even start? Like, how do you even start your own insights when it comes to poker?
I would think the comparison I think is more like this. Let's say the setup of the game, how it is in chess right now, it's more comparable to you get the same starting hand all the time, right? So let's say you get ace king dealt every hand.
Yeah.
You would always play the same way. And so the starting position of a chess board it's always the same. So it's kind of like getting ace king every hand. Whereas now, let's say you would like how's it called, 960 or 360?
Yeah, 960. Yeah, 960.
960 when the pieces get shuffled. Like now, every time your strategy changes, and that's more like folding is not necessarily like you now need, everything is changing, or like you have to, go this different path. It's more like, no, you have a different starting position, and now it's just a different strategy that is the right first move. So maybe when you have that starting position, then it's e4, but when it's shuffled differently, a different hand, then instead of calling or raising, it's maybe folding, and that might be b4 or c4 or whatever. So the optimal move changes with the starting position type of idea.
And I by the way, you'll have to forgive me because I'm probably going to ask a lot of these questions.
Go ahead.
But I'll also throw in something like if 0 in poker is 0 in chess, but 2,881, which is Magnus Carlsen's highest rating ever. What would be your poker rating, if there's such a thing?
That's a great question, actually. I would say currently I would need to know a bit more around the distribution of the different players, but I guess maybe 2780 or something like that.
Okay. So I guess there's also different types of formats, but 2780 in classical chess is about top 5, top 6 in the world.
Then less. So maybe 2740, 2720, something like that. So I would say it's like I'm clearly not the best like this, I know for certain. And then it's like it could be a range between like I know I'm at least 2600 and I know I'm not above 2800. So like somewhere in that region.
And I imagine just like chess, it's like if you're not extremely actively in the trenches and playing all the time, it will fluctuate. So in 2016, you were probably 2900. Would that be fair?
It could be. I wouldn't even say it was 2016. I would say it was probably more 2015. So kind of think like there's a certain lag, right? Like there's something where I had results or the best results in 2016, but I think my strongest relative performance was probably in 2014, 2015.
Okay.
So
that is it. That is in chess something we tell ourselves. I don't know if it's to make ourselves feel better or if it's actually reality. I do think there's a mix of both. But yeah, you sometimes don't have the results, but you have the skill. And in poker, like I've noticed, toward the end of tournaments, there's flips. You have to win a few. You have to just win a few times in sheer luck. But that kind of luck in chess is something, when you survive long enough in a game against a really good player, like they're going to make a mistake because even though they're very high rated, they're still human. And so in every tournament, if you get a big win early, it changes everything because you just run hot. I mean, you're super confident. Chess luck is on your side. But it's obviously a little bit different than in poker where like you said, there's a lot of hidden elements. I think if you were to calculate how many times people got grandmaster norms in chess, it's because they won early. It's not because they made a comeback later in the tournament. If your tournament is lukewarm, you're going to end it.
But how much is that a mental aspect? Like how much is that just people like performing worse when they have performed bad already?
That's a very good point. Did you see
Because
my?
to be frank, I think the mental game of most of the chess players I know on the top is terrible. Like
Really?
I think it is like watching them play and like how they. I feel you can see that when they make 2 or 3 poor choices,
Mm-hmm.
I would say a lot of players come to mind who just go on super tilt and like continue playing poor chess.
Even like doesn't matter the time control.
I mean, most of the games I watch are more rapid or blitz games. So I feel like if I look like the person that comes to mind, for example, where I don't feel that is Wesley So. Like I just feel like he is one of the people I have on that spectrum where I feel like he's very consistently playing and just first of all, I don't feel like he has this tendency to make a lot of like really terrible moves. Maybe he's from his personality style, it seems to be more on the just continuously solid side of things.
Yeah.
But then I've seen I don't know, like I could for almost all of the top rated players I could remember at least one moment where it was just like they whether it's just friendly blitz games against I don't know Hikaru or like someone else where it's just like you can tell it's like they lose 2 or 3 games and like they didn't play so well type of mode, and then there's no coming back. Like there's no like, oh now they get back. It's just like they get destroyed and then they quit.
Well, I'm not a top player, but I was going to ask if you had the misfortune of following my most recent tournament. That was the worst, I think, mental state I've ever had of any chess tournament. In my first 2 rounds, I had completely winning positions, and I didn't win. I drew, but, I actually could have maybe lost the first round, but okay, I drew. Second game, I drew. And then I lost 1, and it just opened the floodgates. And I ended the tournament with 4 draws and 5 losses, which is like awful. I mean, there was a point of time I didn't want to show up to play because I just assumed that no matter what I did that day, I was going to lose. Like it didn't matter. My brain was just, and it's very easy to just say, I mean, it's just a mentality thing. You need and that very well could be true. And at some point in the future, I will most likely have to work with some sort of mindset coach. You've mentioned that, I think, in some videos, something about a mindset coach. But I think you're right. I definitely think that there is a mental side of things. I am very bad at looking at the much stronger players and identifying them. So I just sort of look at them like gods, kind of. I'm like, they're really good. I'm not going to analyze any of them because I'm not as good as they are in chess, but that's probably a mistake that I'm making. I can't point out their flaws. But then when you say something about Wesley So, I go, that's actually true. Wesley So does not make a lot of really terrible moves. It's
so funny because like I think when you are in a world, you look at the world with the bias of the world. And
yeah, and a little bit of maybe a respect for me, I would say it's a respect thing. I don't overly criticize any of the players because I'm just a YouTuber. So, for example, if one of them has a really terrible event, I will not even crack jokes about it. Like I that's just me as an individual. I will just, just like let them have their bad tournament.
But I think that's totally fine. Like I also don't see it so much as criticizing. I think it's just something we, as poker players, we're exposed to it much more, right? So let's say we play great, the exposure to variance is more like outcome variance. Like I don't know how to call it. It's like the variance of having a bad day, or like the variance of making a poor move, like how much variance that is. It's hard. It's much different than you make. Let's say you play, every move you play is absolutely world class, is like the top engine move for like 45 moves in a row, and you still lose. Like that's how it feels in poker sometimes.
Yeah.
And then imagine that would happen in chess. Like people would jump off roofs. It's like you play the absolutely perfect game, and in the end, you need to roll a dice, and 2 out of 6 times you still lose. Like it just wouldn't. It's a very different environment, and it trains you in a different way. So I feel that's why I maybe have very high standards towards like the top 20 in the world. Like if I look at the poker world, they're very established in terms of dealing with bad outcomes and dealing with swings. And I feel that's very different in the chess world.
Yeah, because in chess, you can only hold yourself accountable. I mean, at the end of the day, you just get very angry or upset at yourself. And I will say, I'm the kind of individual that if I'm suffering at the chessboard, my entire life is suffering. So basically, I start thinking about everything I'm doing wrong day to day that's not even chess. I'm like, man, I gotta wake up earlier. Like, I gotta sleep earlier. I gotta, why haven't I gone to the gym in 2 months? Lazy idiot. Like, I start thinking all this stuff. So there was a Swedish guy, Axel Smith, who wrote a book. And he said that one time he got so mad at himself after a bad game, he closed the blinds of his hotel room for like a month because he didn't deserve sunlight. I don't know if you've ever closed the blinds of your hotel room thinking you didn't deserve sunlight, but
no, never.
Yeah, but I mean, in poker, it's kind of like, oh, I should have. I don't even know the terminology, right? Like I sometimes hear you guys talking in videos, and I'm just like, wow, that sounds really fancy. But you can say I should have played it differently on the turn. I should have done this, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, we don't get me wrong. Like we also make lots of mistakes, and there's also every one of us has issues with variance. So it's it is a very challenging environment, and there's lots of tilt, and there's stuff flying around and things getting damaged. It's just really fun to see how people get like really, really good from different angles, right? Like in my mind, this was always something that I just had such a hard time with, and I think that's how my group of we were called the Germans. We just we're really harsh on ourselves for simple mistakes, right? So anything that is yes, in the higher in the higher echelon you can make mistakes, but like anything that is category like simple, like is non-existent. Like that, there's no excuse to ever make like a really bad play type of thing. And I guess that's why maybe also my personal bias is that when I see someone doing that, like I always found that ridiculous in high stakes poker, is when someone who's really good then suddenly is like loses a big hand and then just tilts it off, like $80,000 or whatever. It's just like, and yeah, it's still shows me how much room there is even on the highest level, right? Like how much we are still like just a 40 out of 100 and not like 90 out of 100.
Right. Tell me about your journey. So after you played these games against friends, it was online, right? That's that.
No, it was all in person. So
all in person.
Yeah, we met once every 2 weeks, put the money on the table, and then had some drinks and had fun. So
but
that
like
was the start.
Yeah, for you after that, when you made it a career, like were you kind of like the online generation, or for you played only live?
Yeah, so I give you the really quick rundown, and then you can dive deeper wherever you want. So basically, it was like 3 years of playing without winning money. So just depositing here and there, like quitting university, trying to make it full time, but not really winning enough yet. So I was 18, 19 around that time. So I played online, like $2 buy-ins, sit and goes. And I was very active in forums. And then I started playing a bit higher, got a bit stronger people around me, and started winning my first money. So maybe had like 5,000 euros to my name, and did a world trip. That was 2013, and then I moved to Vienna, where I'm still living, and then had a really, really good run. So I think at that point I was a good player, not a great or outstanding or excellent player. Like I was good, and built up my bankroll to like 250, 300K. And then a friend of mine became world champion. Like it's not the same, so it's not a skill thing, it's more a variance thing. And I had a really big piece of that, so I cashed about 700K for that. And
what does that mean? Big piece?
So it's like you can buy action in someone. So let's say his buy-in is 5,000, so I put up half of that, so 2,500, and then I get half of what he's winning. So I put up 2.5K and I won 700K because he cashed for 1.3 million.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a really big jump. So overnight I became a millionaire. That was pretty absurd, especially because 9 months ago, I had 500 euros in my bank account and was eating spaghetti and tomato sauce like basically every day. And then my career started. Then I did that full time. I did that before, but then it was kind of like, okay, now I'm settled. Like I arrived, like I can play all the stakes. I don't have to think about stuff. And then I think in 2014, I would say I climbed up to be one of the best online, started playing live more and more. 2015 became one of the best live, I would say. And then 2016 had bink, and cash for like almost 20 million in a year, and then quit my career. That's the really brief rundown.
Was it like a flash in the pan? Are you the person who had maybe the craziest and shortest career?
I don't know about craziest, but it's definitely up there. It was certainly a very crazy and short career. There's a couple others who also have had insane runs, but I think my tournament run was it was one of the top 3 or top 5 runs of all time.
For the uneducated poker audience like myself, what can you possibly compare your run in 2016 to like another run? Because I don't know any others.
In the poker world or in the chess world?
No, in the poker world. There's no such thing in the chess world. I mean, because the chess world just has Magnus. Like we don't have one in the poker world. So
that's true. I mean, I don't know. There might be some historical stories where someone really quickly became very good. I don't know about the past in chess so much. I would say there was Bryn Kenny and Justin Bonomo who also had a really good runs. So there's a couple of people who did win quite a lot in like a year or 1.5 years time span. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's hard to say. Dan Coleman, it's hard. There's a couple of people out there who won like 10 to 30 million in like 1 or 2 years. So it's hard to say which run is the hottest.
Right. This whole concept in poker that exists, it's always fascinated me. So for example, buying action, because when I think about like what you just described, in some ways it just blows my mind that you can give half an entry fee to someone and you get half their earnings. Like it just doesn't fully make sense. Like in some ways in some ways it makes perfect sense. In other ways it's like, but you didn't do anything. Why do you get 50% of the winnings? Like you should get, it's just such a large sum of money that I don't know. It like, but or the concept of side bets that I've heard you describe sometimes in videos. What is that? You basically just make a bet with someone that you're gonna do really well in a tournament for like $300,000 extra.
Yeah, sometimes people come up with crazy bets. So, I mean, in the end, it's like, let's say, right? You flip a coin, and like some people want to bet $1 million on flipping a coin, right? Like it's kind of similar, and then it becomes these arbitrary things where people think it's 50%, and someone else thinks it's 70%, and then people want to bet large amounts against it. So. I mean, I always wanted to do a chess bet. I really tried hard to get some action, but I don't think I would have wanted to dedicate this, like my entire next, I don't know, a couple of years to it. But like there's you wouldn't believe how big amounts you can get down on like some insane bets.
Well, do poker folks also just have a completely different perception of money than some folks?
Yeah, for sure. Because it's so in the world, betting a certain amount of money becomes very natural, right? Like even for you, like you probably, let's say there's 160K for first to win in a chess tournament. You wouldn't feel like you're betting on something, right? Like you just feel like, oh, I can win money if I win this tournament. So that is such a big difference than if you feel like every time you bet money, you risk this to win this. And it makes, like, if you've done this a million times, right? Like I've probably played, I don't know, like a couple of million hands and 30,000 tournaments. So like betting money and risking money is like the most normal thing for us. So putting that in a different context is just a different context. It's like, okay, betting money on like an outcome, betting money on sports, betting money on who wins more in a poker tournament is just kind of the same thing in a different context.
Yeah, I know some people who aren't as good as at poker, and and they love to bet on basically everything. They will bet on, they'll look at some tournament games. I have some friends who actually, our group chat used to be called Degenerate Gamblers, because they would just go to like a random tournament in Europe and they would go, okay, I think this guy's gonna beat this guy. You want to bet? Like, what are the odds? I'll give you this to this, and then whatever, $20. So I guess the poker crowd is sort of similar.
Yeah.
And I heard you say another term, which was horses, right? I didn't know that. Yes. I didn't know that at all. That's basically when you it's like a sponsor, like an investor, basically. How does that work?
Yeah, so it's basically just a name for, I think the term comes from horse betting. So it's like, oh, you have your horse that you bet on that's running and you kind of want it to win. I think that's the idea. So if you bet on a poker player, that's your horse, that's the one you bet on, that's the one you want to win.
Right. And I also know there's a difference between like buying into a tournament. For obviously the more you buy in, the higher all the prizes are. What's the biggest World Series of Poker buy-in?
It changes. Sometimes it's 111,000.
Okay.
Last year it was, I think, 300,000, 250,000. Wow. And a few years it's been $1 million.
Buy-in.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. You understand, like, to most people that's insane. So
I know, yeah.
What percent of those people are just literally wiring $1 million from their own bank account?
Very few.
Okay. So how does that actually work? People buy into your action, or?
Yeah, so I played it in 2018, I think. And the way it works is I have my money there. So like I had, let's say, $500,000 there. Mm-hmm. And then there is like, mostly it's other poker players. It's not really outside investors. It's just other poker players that are rich. And they buy my action. So like there's there's like chats, or you have this because everyone knows everyone, right? It's not that it's like, oh, there's a new guy. It's like we all know each other for years. And so people buy action of other players, and then you just give the person the cash. So in this case, I had a lot of cash there. And other people bought action of mine, and then they paid me in some way. They wired it to me in euros, or they gave it to me there. And then I sold like 70% or like 75% of my action. So I put up 250K myself, and 750K I got from friends and investors.
And first place was how much?
10 million.
So if you won, you would have gone home with 2.5, and you would have had to pay out.
Correct, but I only came second.
I see. So did you like break even, or?
No, I won. So I cashed for 7.3 million. So I won like one point something.
Okay. Oh, and that's obviously worth it because you only paid 250 of your own, so everybody made money.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Is there any like pressure, like if I fail? But is it just that when people buy your action, they understand they could get absolutely nothing?
It's actually the only time I feel weird about it is when someone wants to invest who has no idea about it.
Uh-huh.
So like I had this once or twice where, business friends of mine, they were like, I would love to, have a piece. And then I feel kind of weird because like they won't, it's their first time, right? They won't understand like how variance works, and like it to a degree they will, but it's just a weird feeling when it goes bad, it's bad, and when it goes well, it's like amazing, but it's only amazing like 15% of the time.
Yeah.
So that's just not so great.
Yeah, because I can imagine that it's very strange having these all these conversations about money. And like what I mean by that, for example, I very vaguely discuss income, like maybe on stream or in some videos, because folks can sort of assume that their favorite chess YouTubers or even their favorite like grandmasters, like none of that stuff is public. We don't, even sometimes tournaments don't disclose what the show money is. For example, Tata Steel, this Dutch festival, there's no money anywhere. There's no prize money. So everybody signs a contract before the tournament. They get paid and then they play. And they're very friendly with their conditions there. But the entire poker world knows like everything. I mean, they know everything you make and everywhere. And to me, that's like fascinatingly uncomfortable. Do you feel the same at all, or is you just sort of get something you get used to because
I mean, think of it more like tennis players, right? I think most of the prize money is public, and you can look up their name, and it says like, oh, won like $42 million, like playing whatever, and the number is just incredibly off. Like
yeah,
it's like a magnitude of 10 off of what people actually made, because if you look at the top 10 of poker players all-time money list, it will be tens of millions off for each player, right? Like you have cost that doesn't show up there, you have action that you sold that doesn't show up there, like
yeah.
you do a lot of other stuff as well. You play online, you play cash game, like you do other investments or stuff. So like if I look at this number and what people think I have versus what I actually have is like, it's like they can see something there, but like it's I personally don't have such a big problem giving people a ballpark, because I rather want them to think kind of the right thing rather than somewhat the wrong thing,
Right.
So but I also don't tell them I made this much money there and this much money there and this is what I
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, it's just a fascinating world to me, like through and through. And obviously, there's also taxes or whatever folks are doing to hide their money in the Cayman Islands or something. I don't know. But being a poker player in like New York City, for example, would be awful because all the taxes that you pay are just unbelievably high. So I imagine that's an entire other world. But you don't even play anymore. You said you retired. I believe you played some online events last year, right?
I did get back into the mix in 2020 with everyone being stuck at home. So
didn't you also win? You won some stuff.
I did win a bracelet again. Yeah.
So you just go back anytime you want and win. Yeah, it's
not that easy, but I mean, I didn't, when I said the 2740 or whatever before, like I was more like a 2600 when I got back in, and I had to work my way up. So I did put in some time in the last 2 years to get better and improve. And also because I do coaching for Poker Code. So it's like, that kind of like whatever I want to do is it kind of always keeps me up to date.
That was going to be my next line of questioning. So it's a good transition. If you're not playing in the poker world, is coaching basically the only thing? It's kind of like chess, right? You can make courses, you can make videos. So
It's very different, I feel.
okay.
Because I feel the landscape is very different. So more as there's much more money in poker, there's also much more interest in to spend money, right? Like in chess, basically, as far as I know, like the cost is much lower, and for everything, for like hourlies, for coaching materials, like a lot of it is free, and so it's a very different landscape in that regard, and which makes it more attractive, right? Like there's more incentive to coach in poker, I would say, than there is in chess.
Yes, but I've also been told by some folks that there's a conflict of interest because the better you make everyone, the higher risk you're running yourself.
I think that argument is mostly bullshit.
Okay.
There are some cases where it fits, but like in general, this idea that, if I give coachings now, like, it's like everyone is just
Gonna get,
improving.
yeah.
It depends to the degree where if, I play against very specific players and I share very specific insights that will cost me personally, but that it will, like eliminate, just make everyone so much better. I think that is more of a wishful thinking.
Okay. I admittedly also feel like that argument is slightly ridiculous, that, you're going to train somebody in poker and then they're going to make it to the final table and directly compete against you in some big event. But I was told that before. I was told that's why you can't, you can't train everybody.
I mean, I would explain it like this. Let's say, I don't know how your prep in chess is, but let's say if you play like your most competitive style, right? Let's say there's a tournament tomorrow and it's for life or death. Like,
okay.
What would be your like opening choices? Like, would there be something where you feel like, okay, this is your strongest area?
You're saying what would be my approach to the event based on playing style, or
yeah, more like you don't know anything about your opponent in front of you. He could be 1800, it could be a 3K engine, and like you need to win this game, or like, let's say not win but play it as well as you can.
Yeah.
Like, what would be your opening choice with white, for example?
Yeah, I would play d4 because I know the theory there the best. So
okay, and that's, I feel, if you would now make a video about everything, like, let's say an hour of like the most valuable things about this opening and how you think about it and how you approach it and share what you don't know so well, and like that video will be valuable for people who want to get better at chess. But it will be very, very, very valuable for the person that plays against you.
Yeah.
So it's more a matter of very direct competition than it is a matter of you make everyone like an absolute god just by them watching this video.
Well, I actually have a very funny story, because in my most recent tournament, I was playing with the black pieces against this international master, and he played a first move that he basically never plays because he was anticipating that I would play Caro Kann. And I didn't anticipate he would play it because I was like, that's ridiculous. I mean, he would not change up his repertoire.
What did he play?
He played e4, and he played the fantasy variation against the Caro Kann. So
I don't know that. What is it?
e4, c6, d4, d5, f3. So it's f3 on the third move. You just bolster your center with the f pawn, which is and I was so not expecting it. It was the one thing that I really haven't reviewed at that level for a while. I have some blitz variations, but not at that level. And he got a good position, and he outplayed me and he won. And he told me afterward that he has a roommate who watches my videos, who saw like 6 months ago in a video I made a joke. If you want to beat me, play the fantasy variation of the Caro Kann. I like cracked a joke in some video. And it came true. The prophecy came true. He played it against me, and I was unprepared. And
That's hilarious.
yeah, and it's literally an example of shooting myself in the foot. It just so happened that it was just something I haven't studied, and I didn't remember, how to equalize with black.
So I'm actually really curious about this. So let's say, okay, let's say you identify this now. Okay, so let's say you have all these possibilities, and you kind of realize, okay, I have a weakness in the fantasy variation. How do you first of all, do you care about it? Like, do you feel like, okay, now I want to study this? Or is it more like, okay, like acknowledged?
Yeah.
Or are you like, okay, now I actually want to learn this? And then second question, how do you go about it? Like, is there like, how do you get better at this or prepare for this?
So in my case, I know multiple ways of playing against the fantasy, which is already a problem. So sometimes too much information is bad. And so therefore, when I'm at the board, I'm like, crap, what if he came prepared with those variations that I know, but better than me? So I'm actively thinking about, if he studied my chess.com games, I play like this, 75% of the time. And I haven't reviewed that seriously in a while. And if he did, and it's very sharp and it's not very solid, the moves are not intuitive, I'm going to get myself in a position where he knows all the stockfish moves and I don't. So I'm like immediately already kind of throwing myself off. I'm like thinking, maybe I should play.
But so, okay, let's say you have three options. I don't know. You have queen b6, you have d6, or like, I don't know. You have probably moves that you have in your mind of like, you could play this, right? You could take, and then you're like, okay, do you think about evaluating which ones he probably has studied for, or like where the EV drop, or like the loss you gain basically maybe isn't so high, but he maybe doesn't know the prep for this move? Or is it more like...
Yeah. So during that game, I played an approach that I thought he wouldn't have studied it, because first of all, I don't play it. And second of all, as far as I was aware, there was like one approach for white. And so I play my move, and he responds with something completely different than what I thought. So he doesn't play in the way...
What was your move?
I played e6 on move 3 against the fantasy. So I played e6. And basically, I thought it was going to become a classical French defense. I thought there was nothing else that white could do. And I'm kind of not wrong in the sense that he played... well, the game is even... It's against this guy, Ivan.
I love this. I have to look this up right after.
Yeah, it was, and basically, like, we played 5 moves each. He played them instantly. It took me about 15 minutes to sort of will myself into playing all those moves, because I just was hesitant and whatnot. And then I said, okay, I want to steer the game out of this potential theoretical battle, and I took some risk. And I spent, 10 minutes calculating the risk. And he didn't play into my calculations whatsoever. He just very quickly played some solid option. Position is still unpleasant for me, and this just kept happening throughout the game. And I psyched myself out to being down a ton on time, and to just being in a slightly worse position. And, it only got worse. Now, to fix this problem, I went back and I looked at where I made the theoretically wrong move. And it was right at that moment, early, move 5, move 6, where I decided, I'm gonna do something right now, which I shouldn't have done. And so I studied that way. I studied e6 a little bit more thoroughly. I didn't, so next time I won't wing it. And I just sharpened my tools. But the problem is that, like, I haven't looked at the fantasy variation since that game. So if I sat down right now and I played and I would still be a bit... So chess is this constant process. Like, do I actually know my stuff? Like, do I know it there? And you have to just constantly think about, if I get to the board and they play something, like, do I actually remember my ideas that I analyze with the engine to pose problems to my opponent? Because if you don't, and you get it on the board, that's a missed opportunity right there. So completely opposite example is... First round of my most recent tournament, like two times ago, I got my prep on the board, and I had played maybe 40 blitz games of that specific prep weeks before the tournament on my anonymous account. I was just grinding this line, and I got an opportunity to play against my opponent. He played into like 14, 15 moves of my analysis, but he was down 1 hour on the clock. Like, I played every move instantly. I knew everything. The second we got out of the prep, I didn't play the best move, but I played an annoying move, and he had to play 4 or 5 more accurate moves until move 20. He made a mistake, and I won. And like that is how you win games sometimes in chess. You come in prepared, they lose their minds, but the good players recover from that initial blow of prep, and they can get themselves out of it. Good time management, but it doesn't always happen.
I find it so fascinating. I had this conversation with Jan Gustafsson, where like the way I learned poker and looking at these options, I feel much different than a chess player.
Mm-hmm.
And especially the aspect of when I studied games, or I realized what you mentioned before, right? Like sometimes there is maybe 2 options, sometimes there's 5 options, and sometimes the EV differences of these options are really different, right? Like sometimes one move is like basically the same as another move, or very similar, and sometimes one move is like not making you lose, but like is a favorite over another move, even though like on a 2K level it might not make a difference, but on 2.8K it might make a big difference. Or and I find that so interesting, to play moves that make your opponent like intuitively mess up the next move, like especially on like 1800, 2K, 2.2K, 2.4K, where unless you actually have looked at this, it's basically impossible to know that a rather intuitive move, like oftentimes it's just things that there is no pattern, because it's just not something you play ever anywhere else. So
that's kind of my approach to teaching openings, not like some garbage trap where you can win in 8 moves, but even that is really fun for beginners. You can just, your opponent can fall for everything and you win.
Oh my god, no, my queen.
Yeah, I mean, you can checkmate people in 8 moves. I'm actually working on a video showing all the different traps with white and black where you can win in 10 moves or less. So that's going to be fun, when it's out. I like that stuff. But yeah, it's just also in chess, there's a concept of a type of position. Like in poker, you can't, I don't know, you can't really, I'm sure you can always draw some comparison. But in chess, in the fantasy variation, one approach is more open. You trade pawns in the center, and then you play e5, and there's tension in the middle. The board is going to open up. But black is like on the verge of death constantly, but constantly has a defensive move and is fine. But I chose in that game the more solid approach. And I thought, okay, it's going to be more intuitive. And then 2 moves later, I opened the board up. Like, just totally, not... And then you sort of can psych yourself out like that. But in chess, there is that element, like both moves look fine, but the entire characteristic of the position changes. And one way you can go for a while and have a certain evaluation and say, okay, my space advantage is kind of bad, but I have a lot of good center control. My piece is a little bit passive, but I'm fine. But here it's like, okay, the evaluation is fine, just like the other one, but your moves are forced. You have to constantly find the way to defend the position, or you lose. You just lose on the spot. But it's not the same, It's just not the same thing at all. I mean, it's so.
There's a really, really good training video by I don't know how to pronounce his name properly. Shaq, I think everyone's calling him.
Shahryar Mamedov?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
What's his nickname again?
Shah. Yeah.
Shah. Okay. Yeah. And he did this video where like it was kind of exactly what I like, because he was talking about this constantly. Is like, when the prep for this opening, I don't remember exactly what it was. He was just like, and he was playing against a GM. I think he was just like, unless you have studied this exactly like that, absolutely, like it was a counterintuitive move, like 6 in a row or something. It's like, and then he played this opening regularly, and just like in 10 moves, like most of them were messing up pretty badly. So it was really cool to see like him putting that into play, like just kind of trying to find ideas that make opponents, even on a very high level, like constantly try to come up with ideas that just aren't so natural to find. So I guess that's kind of my play style in poker as well. It's just putting people in tough spots. Like, so maybe that's why I like it.
Yeah, I'm really bad at drawing these comparisons because I don't know a huge amount about poker. But yeah, it could be even something like you study a player, which I'm sure you guys do all the time, and you tend to know that in certain spots they play a certain way, but all of a sudden they completely change it up, and now you're like, uh-oh. What is this? I don't know. Is this a one-time thing? Is this a permanent change to their playing style? I don't know. And it can be the same in chess, but in chess, that process is very much in the opening phase. I think later in the game, it's all in front of you. So in chess, the discrepancies happen where two guys, or gals in this case, but I'm just saying, like, they're sitting and they're both looking at a variation. You think it's good for you, I think it's equal. We go there. You overestimate your position. It turns out that it's actually equal. And now you still try to press me, and you get yourself into a bad position and you lose. But we saw everything. Like, we both saw many possibilities. And for very strong players, it's actually good content to analyze the post-game interviews. For beginners, not so much. It's very tough. They all talk about, these... Have you ever watched the press conference, like after a game? Mm-hmm. They just sit there and they say moves with no board. They just say the moves out loud. And if you really
So. But also the question being asked were like the most ridiculous. I mean, this was the most absurd press conferences I've seen. Like, what the hell? Like,
yeah, they're not good. They're not good. And aren't you glad in poker you don't have press conferences?
Oh, they do these bust out interviews, which are phenomenal. Think about, you just get it in for $1 million in equity and you lose, and then they come and say, how do you feel? It's just like, yeah, I feel fantastic. Like,
yeah, it's really difficult to control yourself in those moments. But in chess, the World Championship is a bit different. But for example, like the Grand Prix, right? There's this gentleman. He's like, Grishuk, Hikaru, you just finished a very tough game. Take us through the game. And then it's just 2 minutes of, no, I mean, I saw this variation and then blah, blah. Like, he says like 7 moves in a row. There's no board, nothing. And then, it's...
I love it. Yeah. I kind of love it, though. I have no idea. I obviously understand nothing. I remember game 6 when he asked him, it's like, oh, so they look up some random engine solution. It moved 61 or whatever when Magnus blundered, like could have won and didn't, and like, and then it's like, Magnus, what did you think when you played this? And then he's like,
That's also that's the issue nowadays in chess. We have the all-knowing entity. Like, I've seen some streamers in poker, have it with chat, but they don't know the right move. They just they have their opinion. Oh, this was a terrible play here. You should have done this. But yeah, it's different when you're kind of like the...
What did your opponent play against e6? I'm curious. Like, knight c3 or... Yeah,
knight c3, bishop e3.
Okay.
So knight c3, bishop e3. Fantasy variation is really good against the Caro-Kann. I'm gonna say it is very good. It's also really good at intermediate level because people don't know what to do when they have a space disadvantage, and the whole point of it is to keep center pawns around. So there are certain meta ways to play at certain levels that, if you're tactically okay and you don't blunder pieces in one move, you can melt opposition. But most of it has to do with aggression. If you just play very aggressively and attack, and you can keep it under control, then you can generally gain points. Yeah, I would say that is how to get better. My experience in poker was I got the Negreanu masterclass. I learned a few things. I don't know if it has a good or bad reputation. I enjoyed it as a beginner, but again, I have no idea if it was,
I mean, it's been made fun of a little bit, but more because they obviously produce it in a more entertaining way, which I think is generally pretty good. And it's just that obviously the level is more on the basic side. So for like there's probably nothing that I could learn from this. And I love it when people take very difficult concepts and make them, break them down really simply. Like
Yeah.
this is my, I just absolutely, I just love, in poker, there are some legends like Phil Gelfond and Ben Solsky.
Mm-hmm.
And when they talk about, like that's what I consumed. Like I was a beginner and I just watched their videos, and it was like, you hear them talk and it's just, I don't know, like there's something about it. I'm just like, wow, I want to be like them.
Yep.
I want to think. And in your case, that might be true as well, right? Like, are there chess players where you hear them talk and you're just like, how's he getting to these conclusions? And
well, I think it also happens in the sense that I am that person for people. They can watch me in there. I break things down. I can do 40-minute videos on one game. I do 30-minute videos on 6 games. So, the complaint is I'm overlooking critical moments and not going too deep in certain. It's like, yeah, that's the point. Like, and then the complaint is there's channels that do it better. I'm like, I am aware that they make 30-minute videos about one game. Yeah, that's not, it's a totally different it's a different business model. But I kind of noticed like some of your like the Poker Code channel on YouTube. Some of it is like, it's exactly like the right algorithm stuff. Do you make these 3 types of poker mistakes?
Do you avoid them?
Yeah. Is that to just build like Poker Code is a poker academy, and there's a few I've seen, right? But
yeah, it's kind of a journey I've been going through, because I think there's a level of personal development and not on the very advanced level, really more on the simple level of, I didn't like to make videos or content that much. It was really more like a burden. I was like, oh, okay. So now it's much different. Like I enjoy it much more, also through Poker Code, because before I was like, oh, why should I explain the super simple thing? And now I see the people on the other side, and like I kind of feel more for who I'm doing it, and then it's more fun.
Yeah.
So that really helped me, is to understand, is like, oh, hey, it's kind of cool because that actually people really appreciate that and really enjoy that. And before I didn't have that, I was more like, oh, why, now I have to explain a super simple term. It's like, ugh. That's why I wanted to do more content now. And our goal basically is to just take them, take 2800 gameplay and break it down so that everyone who's at least 800 can understand it.
Back in the day, I knew people who watched the game, the hand reviews by Mr. Doug Polk. And I don't know too much about the poker world. I just I know some folks on socials, and I see some various beefs, and I see people kind of like making fun of one another. And I never know if it's like playful. I never know if there's actually some some bad blood. But I've seen Doug Polk like all the time, and yeah, content like that was super easy to digest for somebody like myself. You want to spend 30 minutes a day just on poker YouTube. So
yeah,
I think there's a lot of good opportunity there, because I don't know what the biggest poker stuff is on YouTube, and YouTube is huge.
It is. I think Doug has done a really good job, and mainly also his editor. Like he has someone he's working with, and like I feel that combination of like Doug explaining it well and like doing it in a somewhat entertaining way, and but just the way it's all kind of brought together with like funny memes and like in a with a good pace. Like I feel that is often overlooked, is like how important this aspect of like the actual video editing is, where he just had someone who was just genius at bringing in like poker like that is also something, is like topic related stuff that like regarding other people, kind of these needles, like funny side notes and stuff like that. And they've just done an incredible job at that.
Yeah. And good thumbnail,
Good thumbnails, good titles.
Yeah, it makes you click. One of your videos recently made me click. Oh, I think it was. I mean, I might have been the 2016 thing. It might have been the. I always love stuff like I won millions, with these tells. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I'm gonna put myself in your shoes. I'm never gonna win millions, but here we go. And then you start learning. But there's all these videos in the algorithm, like Negreanu, crazy soul reader, whatever. I don't know. It has like 10 million views. So
I watched him too. I mean,
yeah.
when I was 20 and grinding my way up, like I watched all of these bits too. So
yeah, I know you have your football. So I guess we can wrap up with. I also feel like time like flew by, so I've enjoyed this conversation a lot. Hopefully, I didn't ask you about work too much, but I was very interested about some of the poker.
Anything you want to ask?
No, just what's in the future besides you have football training. Are you on a team? Or
I'm just in like a hobby team. It's like an amateur team, but we just play 5-on-5, so it's more high paced and just for fun. But I always loved it, so I'm always excited.
We have a park nearby, and we were walking on a Sunday morning or Saturday morning, and we saw there was also like some football going on. It was a team of. It was really funny. For some reason, even though it was just like a friendly league, it was a green team. Green team was all Hispanic guys. Blue team, or like whatever their other color, all Germans. It was fascinating, and they had the last names. One of their first names, and one of the guys was named Mads, and he was this 6'4", whatever, I don't know how many in meters that is, but he was huge guy, and he was like 60 years old, and he was this tank, man, and he was just bulldozing people. Like, I feel like Germans in football are you guys are scary. You work together very well. They had a couple of like intense guys. One of their names was like Breuer or something. I don't know. They had their names on the back.
Yeah, we are. We love our football, man. Like we just love it. So yeah, and then besides that, in the future, I mean, right now, kind of my year is mostly poker code. So I really want to build this further. Like somehow there's really there's like this spark, this energy where I want to, I'm not done with it. Like I want to improve the product. I want to create more content and get it to a degree where I really feel like we have left a legacy. Like that's, I think is, because it started, it's this, I started with a video course and I was like, nah, like, no, like it's not enough. Like it's not what I was looking for. And so we spent the last 3 years basically kind of working out, okay, like, because it didn't work, like it sold well, but it didn't, like, I didn't see the progress that I wanted to see. Is like, wait, it's people don't come there with the mindset of like, okay, I watched this from start to end, and like that's no, it's like they buy it and then they watch a couple of videos and then they like forget about it and do something else, and it just didn't feel great to just sell it and then forget about it. So what we did was kind of, I guess, tackle the problem more substantially and just say, okay, like what is that actually they need? They need guidance and they need like something that helps them along their journey, whatever that journey is, whether you are a small stakes player and just, want to play poker from time to time, or whether you are, play a bit higher and you want to get to the next level, because we can help both of them. We just need the right format and the right tools. And so the idea there is to offer something for everyone and have like this platform where, whatever level you are, there's always kind of the next people that can help you, right? Like if you're 1200, there's like 1600s in there, he can kind of point you in the right direction. And there's always head coaches at the top who can share basically the highest level knowledge. And that's now at a level where I'm already pretty happy about it, and I want to get it to the next level. So that's my goal for 2022.
Awesome. Well, I have a couple of checkpoints I need to hit, but if I have some spare time, I'd be willing to try it out, because I'm probably about 800 in no, I don't know, maybe 600 in poker. Every now and then I can play.
We will make you 1600 in no time.
There you go. Yeah, I hear that in poker, if you're 2400, like chess, that 2300, 2400 in chess, you can make like $250,000 a year, 300K a year. That's what I've heard.
That's what they say. Yeah?
So some arbitrary comparison, yeah, which is quite different because you cannot make that with that level in chess. You just can't win any tournaments, and you're never going to make that much money teaching. So. But no, I mean, absolutely. I'd be super pumped to give it a shot. Appreciate your time today. I'm also gonna, invite folks back. So next time, I enjoyed today's talk a lot. So we could go for a bit longer. But have fun at football. I really appreciate the time today.
Yeah, it was really fun. I love the comparisons and connections between chess and poker. It's just I kind of like, even you talking about the game like fired me up to to look at the game and study a bit. So I don't know, chess is right now exciting me in a similar fashion than poker did. So yeah, thanks for having me, and I loved it.
Yeah, we'll talk soon. I'll let you know when it's out, and yeah, hopefully we can have you back. We can have a longer talk. I can pick your brain about Vienna or something.
Anytime, Larry.
All right. Have a good night. Have a good time at football. I'll let you know when we're posting.
Thanks, buddy. Cheers.
As always, everybody, if you've made it this far in the episode, I want to say thank you for your continued support of my content. It really means the world to me. If you want to support me, there are many ways to do that through donation links on Twitch and on YouTube, but there are also courses at GothamChess.com. I'll see you right back here for the next episode of the Gotham City Podcast with our next guest, hopefully quite soon.